Raiders fans, the biggest question surrounding this team just got a whole lot more interesting, and it has nothing to do with another off-season rumor. The Raiders are about to show us what their next era really looks like. Fernando Mendoza, the #1 overall pick, is finally getting meaningful preseason action. Trey Tucker is entering a season where he could take another huge step. And while Max Crosby is no longer part of this roster, his strange trade saga has already changed the entire direction of the franchise. So what does all of this mean for the Raiders in 2026? Let's get into it. Raiders fans will remember the chaos around Max Crosby earlier this year. Las Vegas agreed to send its star defensive end to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for 2 first-round picks. One of those picks was number 14 overall in the 2026 NFL Draft, with another first-rounder coming in 2027. It looked like one of the biggest moves of the entire offseason. Then everything exploded. The Ravens backed away after Crosby's physical raised concerns, and suddenly the blockbuster deal was off. Crosby stayed in Las Vegas, and the Raiders had to rethink their plans. But that was not the end of the story. The trade was eventually completed, and Crosby became a Raven, giving Baltimore one of the league's most dangerous pass rushers while giving Las Vegas major draft capital for its rebuild. That move tells you something important about the Raiders. This is not a team trying to patch 1 or 2 holes and suddenly become a Super Bowl favorite. This is a franchise trying to build an entirely new foundation. And that brings us to the player who could become the biggest piece of that foundation.
Fernando Mendoza.
This is the moment Raiders fans have been waiting for. Fernando Mendoza is finally going to get real NFL game action. Clint Kubiak has confirmed that the #1 overall pick will receive plenty of experience in the preseason opener against the Arizona Cardinals. And this is much bigger than simply watching a rookie play a few preseason drives. Mendoza is supposed to be the future of this franchise. The Raiders selected him first overall after an incredible 2025 season at Indiana. He led the Hoosiers to their first national championship, finished the season undefeated, and won the Heisman Trophy. He also threw 41 touchdown passes during that season. Those are enormous expectations for a 22-year-old quarterback. But here's the reality. College football and the NFL are completely different worlds. Defenders are faster. Pass rushers are stronger. The windows are smaller. And every mistake gets punished. That is exactly why these preseason snaps matter. Mendoza needs to see NFL defenses with his own eyes. He needs to feel the pressure. He needs to learn how quickly an NFL play can break down. And the Raiders need to see how he responds. Can he get through his reads? Can he make the easy throw? Can he stay calm when the pocket collapses? Can he operate Kubiak's offense without hesitation? Those answers are far more valuable than anything Mendoza can show during a practice session. But here's the interesting part. Mendoza is not currently being handed the starting job. Kirk Cousins entered training camp as the veteran quarterback at the top of the depth chart, while Mendoza and Aiden O'Connell were expected to push him. That plan has not suddenly disappeared. Cousins still gives Las Vegas something every young quarterback needs: experience. But Mendoza is getting his chance to make the coaches think. And if he starts lighting up the preseason, Raiders fans are going to start asking one very uncomfortable question. How long can you really keep the #1 overall pick on the bench? This is where things could become fascinating. The Raiders don't need to rush Mendoza. In fact, Kubiak has already made it clear that he values giving a young quarterback time to develop behind an experienced player. That is one reason Cousins was brought in. But development does not mean sitting forever. At some point, Mendoza has to prove that he is ready. And preseason football gives him the perfect opportunity. The Raiders are planning to give him meaningful snaps rather than throwing him onto the field for a tiny cameo. That means every possession matters. A good drive could increase confidence. A bad drive could show the coaching staff exactly what Mendoza needs to improve. And that is what preseason football is supposed to do. It is not about winning the Super Bowl in August. It is about finding answers before September. The Raiders are going to learn a lot about Mendoza over these games. But the quarterback cannot do it alone. He needs receivers who can create separation. And one receiver in particular could be ready for a breakout. Here is the player Raiders fans should be watching very closely.
Trey Tucker.
While the spotlight is naturally on Mendoza, Tucker has already shown that he can produce at the NFL level. In 2025, Tucker led the Raiders in receiving yards with 696. He caught 57 passes and scored 5 touchdowns in 17 games. Those numbers are not superstar numbers yet, but they show something important. Tucker is improving. His receiving yardage has gone up every season since he entered the league. And his speed gives the Raiders something they desperately need: a receiver who can create space and threaten defenses down the field. That becomes even more important with Kubiak running the offense. A quarterback like Mendoza needs reliable targets. He needs players who can get open quickly. He needs receivers who can turn short throws into big plays. Tucker has the speed to do exactly that. And now imagine the possibilities. Mendoza in the pocket. Tucker flying down the field. Brock Bowers attacking the middle. Ashton Janty creating problems out of the backfield. Suddenly, the Raiders' offense starts looking a lot more dangerous. But there is still a major question. Is Tucker actually ready to become the team's true number one receiver? That's where this competition gets interesting. Tucker may have the strongest case right now, but Las Vegas has other players fighting for opportunities. Jalen Naylor was added during the offseason, giving the Raiders another experienced receiver who can compete for snaps. Jack Beck is another young player who needs to make his case. Donnie Thornton Jr. brings size and big playability. And rookie Malik Benson is another intriguing name to watch as the Raiders build their receiving group. So no, Tucker is not automatically walking into the WR1 role. He has to earn it. And that is actually good news for the Raiders. Competition creates pressure. Pressure forces players to improve. And if Tucker takes another major step while Naylor, Beck, Thornton, and Benson push from behind, the Raiders could end up with a much deeper receiving group than they had a year ago. But there is one reason Tucker's development could be especially important.
Fernando Mendoza.
If Mendoza eventually becomes the starting quarterback, establishing chemistry with his receivers will be critical. The Raiders are not simply trying to win a few preseason games. They are trying to build an offense that can still be dangerous years from now. And that means figuring out who belongs beside Mendoza for the long term. Tucker has already taken a big step toward making that case. Now he has to prove it on the field. And this is where I want to hear from Raider Nation. If Mendoza looks great in the preseason, should the Raiders seriously consider starting him early in the season? Or should Kirk Cousins keep the job until the rookie is completely ready? Drop your answer below. And don't just say Mendoza or Cousins. Tell me exactly when you would make the switch. When you put all of these pieces together, the Raiders suddenly have a very different story in 2026. This team is not simply trying to recover from another disappointing season. It is trying to establish a new identity. The Crosby trade showed that the organization was willing to make painful decisions to build for the future. The selection of Mendoza showed that the Raiders believe they have found their potential franchise quarterback. The signing of Cousins gives that rookie a veteran safety net. And Tucker's development could give the future quarterback a young weapon he can grow with. That is the part Raiders fans should be excited about. Nobody knows yet whether Mendoza will become a superstar. Nobody knows whether Tucker will become a true WR1. Nobody knows how quickly this rebuild will come together. But for the first time in a while, there is a clear direction. And preseason football is going to give us the first real clues. Watch Mendoza's decision-making. Watch how often Tucker gets involved. Watch the offensive line in front of the rookie quarterback. Watch how Kubiak manages the offense. Those details could tell us much more than the final preseason score ever will. And if Mendoza looks comfortable, if Tucker starts making explosive plays, if the offensive line holds up, then suddenly the Raiders become one of the most interesting teams to watch heading into September. Not because anyone should already be calling them a Super Bowl team, but because this could be the beginning of something much bigger. The Raiders have already made the painful move with Crosby. Now they have to make the next move correctly. They have to develop Mendoza. They have to build around him. And they have to find out which young players are worth keeping for the long haul. Trey Tucker has a chance to be one of them. Fernando Mendoza has a chance to become the face of the franchise. And every preseason snap is going to tell us a little more about whether that future is actually coming together. So here's the big question. Who will have the bigger impact on the Raiders' future, Fernando Mendoza or Trey Tucker? And if Mendoza starts playing like the number one overall pick, how long should Kirk Cousins really remain the starter? Raider Nation, you already know what to do. Drop your prediction in the comments, because this preseason could give us the first real look at the next era of Raiders football.